Good, it's fine. Okay, one more time. So the Gemara had a stira to end off yesterday's shir. What was the stira? The basic question was, is the schos to do the Terumas HaDeshen? What's the Terumas HaDeshen? The removal of the ashes. Is that done via lottery, or is anyone allowed to do that? Because the Mishnah first said, whoever wants to do the Terumas HaDeshen should do what? Get up early, go to the mikvah, Terumas HaDeshen. Then the Mishnah said that the Memonah, the one in charge, would come and knock on the door and said, okay, whoever went to the mikvah, come and be involved in the lottery for the Terumas HaDeshen. So ask the Gemara, is the schos, is the right to be involved in the Terumas HaDeshen only via lottery, or anyone? First, the Mishnah sounded like anyone could do it. Then the Mishnah sounded like it's via lottery. The Gemara had two answers. The first answer was, it's a history game. There's a timeline that we have to know. What's the timeline? Says the Gemara that originally it was not done via lottery. How originally, what did it work? Originally, the way that it worked was whoever wanted to do the Terumas HaDeshen was allowed. What happened? Kohanim came. Kohanim, God bless you, Benny. Kohanim came. Kohanim wanted, thank you very much. Kohanim wanted to be able to do the Terumas HaDeshen. Okay, so what happens? They show up. They show up, and whoever gets there first does the Terumas HaDeshen. What happens? We all know. Anytime you make it that whoever comes first gets it, and whoever comes second does not get it, which, by the way, parenthetically, what do you see? You see that if the guy that comes second is also going to get it, there's no reason to push. The only reason to push is if it's only the first guy that gets it. Now there's a reason to push, because there's only one. But if there's enough for the guy number 1, guy number 2, guy number 3, guy number 10, the guy number 100, guy number 200, why are you pushing? Okay, that's just on the side. But says the Gemara, so what happened? Guy number 1 would come, great. But then eventually they got a lot of Kohanim, and it started being a bad dash, chasing up the Mizbeiach ramp to get there first. And one day they're chasing up their neck and neck, 2 Kohanim, and who's going to get there first? Who's going to get there first? What do? You get a little bit caught up in the moment sometimes, and boom, throws him off the ramp and breaks his leg. So they made a takana, no more chase for the Terumas HaDeshen, for the removal of the ashes, and rather, we're going to do it in the pais. We'll do it via lottery. So says the Gemara, the stira in the Mishnah is not a stira. Originally, it was done without a lottery. Afterwards, it was done with a lottery. Answer number 1 of Abayei. Rava's answer was, and I like to read that line again, Rava Amar. We're 4 lines into the wide lines of Chav Ches Amar Aleph. 1 line right before the Mishnah. Rava Amar, Aidi v'Idi, both of the cases in the Mishnah is la'achar takana. The whole Mishnah is discussing after this takana, which was that they gave it out via lottery. V'hachik atani. And this is how you read the Mishnah, meaning, even though the Mishnah seemed to have indicated originally that it was done not via lottery, says Rava, no, you have to read the whole Mishnah as one case. Whoever wants to come do the Terumas HaDeshen, how? Via lottery, then mashkin v'toivel atshleyav ha'moina should get up and go to the mikvah before the Memonah comes. So 2 answers how to learn the Mishnah. Continues the new Mishnah on the bottom of Chav Ches Amar Aleph, and now we're getting close to the time as the Memonah is coming early in the morning. The Memonah is coming. What is he going to do again? He's going to wake everyone up. After the Memonah wakes everyone up, what's going to be next? He's going to perform the payis. He's going to perform the lottery like we just said. Says the Mishnah on the bottom of Chav Ches Amar Aleph, Notal es hamavteach. What does the Memonah take? He takes the key. The key that's sitting underneath the floor, underneath the block in the floor of the Bais Hamikdash and the Bais HaMokad. Upasach esa pishpeish, and he opens up the pishpeish. What's the pishpeish? The pishpeish is basically a door, but it's a door within a door. If you have a massive door, and in this massive door was a smaller door within it, that is the pishpeish, which is the small door within the larger door in the Beis HaMokad. V'nichnas, and the Memonah. Again, who is the Memonah? The Memonah is the Kohen that is in charge of the payasais, that's in charge of the lotteries, etc. V'nichnas mi Beis HaMokad la'Azarah. So he goes from the Beis HaMokad, which is where they all slept, as we learned already in the beginning of the Masechta, la'Azarah, to the Azarah. And who else entered? V'nichnasu, and all the other Kohanim, v'nichnasu shar ha-Kohanim acharav, and the other Kohanim would enter with him. And what were they holding? This is very early in the morning. Ushtei avukos shel ar biyadam, and they're holding 2 torches of fire so they could see where they are going. V'nechleku l'shtei kitos. So again, and now, if we had the picture, you would see that they're going to go out of the Beis HaMokad. Again, the Beis HaMokad is the larger building, larger structure with the kippah, with the domed roof. Now they're going to exit the Beis HaMokad. They're going to split in 2. And basically what we're going to do now is we're going to be doing a perimeter check around the entirety of the Bais Hamikdash to ensure everything is in the right place to begin the day. So says the Mishnah, what would they do? They would nechliku, they would split up l'shtei kitos, 2 groups, kita, like a class. They would split up into 2 groups. Elu, one group of Kohanim would go out of the Beis HaMokad, umahalchin b'achsadra, and they would go on top of the achsadra, derech mizrach. They would go eastward. They would go one way. Ve'elu, and the other group, mahalchin b'achsadra derech ma'ariv. To make it simple, we go out of the door, one group goes right, one group goes left. We're going to go around in the big rectangular, around the walls of the Bais Hamikdash, and then checking what's going on. Hayabayitkim v'holchim. What would they do? They would go, baydik, they would be checking, they would be inspecting. What are they inspecting? They're inspecting all the Keilim. They're inspecting to make sure there's no tumah anywhere. Hayabayitkim v'holchim. They would be checking and going until shemagiyim l'makayim Oseh Chavitim, until they reach a room, which is the room that they make the chavitim. What are the chavitim? Chavitim is a type of like a pancake type of doughy type of carbon cake that was brought with some of the carbonis. So they went all the way around till they reached this room of the Oseh Chavitim. Higiu elu ve'elu. So what happens when 2 groups go around in a square, go around in a circle? What happens eventually? You meet up, you hit each other. So higiu elu ve'elu. What happens when they reach each other? Amru. They would say to each other, Shalom, Shalom, Hakol, Shalom. Everything is good. We didn't find any issues. Each group would tell the next when they met that everything is in order. Ha'amidu. What happened after they made sure that everything was in order? Ha'amidu. They started to do what? Oseh Chavitim. They woke up those that made the chavitim, this griddle pancake type of dough, la'asos chavitim, to start preparing the chavitim, which began by boiling up the water for the chavitim. So part A of our Mishnah teaches us that what would they do? The Memonah would come, unlock the gate, 2 groups of Kohanim come out, split up, walk along the walls of the Bais Hamikdash to check and make sure everything is in order to start off the day. Continues the Mishnah. What happens in the morning? So we already know what's going to happen next. Misha Zacha, he who won the what? Litra Mizbeiach. The schos to be Tairim, the schos to do the Terumas HaDeshen, the removal of the ashes from the Mizbeiach. Who Yitraim? He would go up and be Tairim, separate and remove the ashes from the Mizbeiach. Vehim, and what would the other Kohanim do? Oimrim, they would say to the one that won the rights, won the lottery to remove the ashes, have a zayir. Be careful to do what? Shaloi tiga bakli. Do not touch the kli. Do not touch the shovel, the fire pan that you're using to remove the ashes, because that fire pan is a kli sharis, is one of the Keilim of the Bais Hamikdash. You shouldn't touch it until what? Shetekadesh yadecha v'raglecha min hakiyar. Until you go and you do kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. What does that mean? How do you sanctify your hands and legs? Min hakiyar, from the kiyar. What does that mean? The kiyar was the water basin structure with all those spouts coming out of all the sides. And the Kohanim, before they started the Avodah, would go, open up the spout, put their hands, legs underneath it, wash off their hands and legs, sanctifying their hands, making them tahar. Then you could touch the Keilim. Parenthetically, this is one of the reasons why it's brought down in halacha, one is supposed to wash his hands before davening. Why? Just like the Kohanim early in the morning before the first Kohen takes the shovel to go remove the ashes from the Mizbeiach, they said, wait, don't touch the shovel. Why not? Because your hands aren't tar. Why aren't your hands tar? Because you didn't wash them yet. So they went to the kiyar and they washed their hands and legs. That's one of the reasons why it's brought down that before we daven, we also are supposed to wash our hands, because our tefillah, our davening, is mimicking the avodah in the Bais Hamikdash. Continues the Mishnah. The harei hamachta, the machta, this coal pan, was where nisuna was placed b'miksaya, in the corner bein hakevesh lemizbeiach. It was waiting between the ramp and the Mizbeiach, b'tzan maravai shel kevesh, on the western side of the ramp. That's where the fire pan would be waiting for the kohen in the morning. Before he would touch it, he would go wash his hands and his legs, and then he would go and begin the Terumas HaDeshen, the removal of the ashes. Continues the Mishnah. We're on the last line of Chavches Amid Aleph. Ein Adam nichnas imoi. No one would enter with him. Who's him? The Kohen that is removing the ashes. The first Avodah in the morning. No one would enter into the Bais Hamikdash between the Ulam and the Kevesh with him. V'loi ner biyadai. And he wouldn't hold a candle in his hand. Ella, rather, mahalech la'ar hama'aracha. How would he see? How would he see? It's very, very early in the morning. There's no light yet. He saw from the ar the light of the maracha. What's the maracha? We have to get that word, as we're going to see extensively about it in the coming Gemaras. What's the maracha? The maracha is the fire on top of the Mizbeiach. Not a little twigs, a big bonfire on top of the Mizbeiach. That would be lighting up the way for the Kohen to come in and see what's going on. The other Kohanim, who are not in the Beis Hamikdash, would not be able to see him. Why would they not be able to see him? Because the ramp of the Mizbeiach would be blocking him. Realize how big the ramp is. Sometimes we think the Mizbeiach is a small structure. Now realize that the ramp, if I'm standing up, the ramp is so large that if you're on that side, you're not going to be able to see me. So if I'm over here about to pick up the shovel, and the Kohanim are on that side, which is where they were, they would not be able to see me due to the fact that the ramp was blocking them. We turn over to Chavches Amid Beis. Chavches Amid Beis. V'loi hayashayimim es kailoi. The Kohanim would not see him, and they would not be able to hear him. So now how would the Kohanim know what's going on? There's one Kohen that's walking in. He's going to wash his hands and legs. He's going to pick up the fire pan. He's going to remove the ashes. But how does everyone else know what's going on? What would they hear? The sound of the eights, which is the wood. What wood? Sha'asa ben Katan. Ben Katan, that's his name. He created a mechanism out of wood. Muchni, a mechanism la Kiyor, for the Kiyor. It was a mechanism. The Kiyor was this massive water basin. How to get filled up with water? There was no plumbing. So the way it got filled up with water is that there's a well underneath the ground. But how do you get the water from the well into the Kiyor? So they had this muchni, this mechanism made out of wood that Ben Katan designed, that lowered down the whole kiyar into the ground, and then raised it back up. So this Kohen, who's the first one to come in every day, and he needs to wash his hands, he needs to get water. So he would move this mechanism, which would lower the whole kiyar down and bring the whole kiyar up. So the other Kohanim who couldn't see or hear what was going on, they would be able to hear what? The movement. Imagine you hear the movement of those wheels of the wooden structures turning to lower the kiyar into the water to fill it up for the washing of his hands. And what would the Kohanim say? Higiu eis kiddush yadav v'raglav min hakiyar. When they would hear that, they would say, the time has come. The time has come that he's washing his hands and his legs, which means he's about to perform the Terumas HaDeshen. The time has come for the Avodah to begin. Let's just try to quickly finish up the Mishnah. We're really out of time. Let's do another 60 seconds. So now, after he washed his hands, what would he do? He would take the fire pan of silver. He would go up the ramp, the Reish Mizbeiach to the top of the Mizbeiach. He would clear out the coals. The from here and here. And he'd pick up the fire pan. He'd pick up the innermost coals that were completely consumed. And then Yarad, he would go down from the ramp. He'd reach a certain place in the floor of the Azarah. Hafach panav litzafain. He turned to the north, to the Safain. Halach b'mizrachish shel kavish. One of the things you have to look at a picture. He would go the east of the ramp. Ke'eser amos, 10 amos away. Tzabar, he would pile up all the gacholim that he just took off the Mizbeiach. Al gabi haritzva on the ground. Rachik min hakevesh shel tvachim, 3 tvachim away from the ramp. Makim shenaistan muras ha'oif, the place where they put the muras ha'oif, part of the avodah of any oilas ha'oif, any karba oil of a bird. Disha Mizbeiach hapanimi, the cleaning out of the inside Mizbeiach was also placed in that area of Disha hamanayra. So basically he would come down. There's a special place on the floor that 3 items were placed. The coals, the ash that he just took off the Mizbeiach, the Muryas ha'oif, part of the carbon oilas ha'oif, the bird, and the clearing out of the menorah were all placed in this pile on the floor. Siyat Dishmaya will pick it up from the Gemara in the next shiur.